Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Professor Gabe Gartner. I'm going to be teaching the first half of Bio 9B this semester. We'll be covering evolutionary biology and the first section of ecology. I'll then hand over the reins to Professor Nicole Crane, who will finish up the ecology unit and then end the course by talking about plant diversity. Now, if you haven't had a chance to go over to the Canvas homepage and check out everything that is there, please do so. Make sure to download the syllabus and read it thoroughly. If you haven't seen the Zoom lecture or attended the introductory meeting where we talk about course logistics, you'll want to look at that as well. It will likely answer most of the questions you have about how this course will work in a strictly online sense. But that's all I want to say about course logistics. I want to jump into our first lecture, which talks about the nature of evolution as a science. Some of this will likely be review, and that's good. It's always good to review material that you've learned before, but my guess is that you will learn some new material as well. Much of biology for the last several hundred years, and even today, simply consisted of going outside and making observations of the natural world. And we call this discipline natural history. And these observations are the facts of life. That is, they are the who, the what, the when, the where, the how of what organisms do. We can look at these organisms here, like this superb bird of paradise or this Europlatus fantasticus gecko from Madagascar, and we can ask any of a number of questions that a natural historian might ask if they go outside. It's really easy. You just need a pair of eyeballs, a pencil, and a piece of paper. So we might ask questions like, who do these organisms interact with? What do they eat? When are they active? Where do they live? How do they do that? Now, the first four of these, the who, what, when, and where, these are strictly observational data points, things you could just go outside and look at. But this last one is a little different. How? How do organisms do stuff? We tend to break up questions in biology into their proximate and ultimate causes. For instance, how do beetles produce this incredible iridescence that we see? This is a question of proximate causation. And what proximate causation is simply asking how things work. So proximate causation explains biological function in terms of how animals perform their metabolic, their physiological, their behavioral functions at any of several levels of analysis. It could be at the genetic level, the molecular level, the cellular level, the organismal level, or even the population level. That's multiple organisms acting together. So there are lots of proximate causes as to how this superb bird of paradise is actually dancing. There, of course, is a genetic component. But there's also a behavioral component that we can describe as natural historians. This dance actually starts with a bow to the female that's sitting on the vine above this male. He then flashes a yellow eye ring, and then he goes into about 12 different really, really elaborate steps. So again, we can describe how he does this at any of several different levels of analysis. But one question that natural historians can't directly answer is why? Why do organisms act and look the way that they do? Why is this bird dancing the way that it does? Why are there so many species of beetles? Take a guess how many species of beetles you think there are on Earth, and we'll talk about this at the end of the lecture. How come some beetles, like the ones I showed you, are super iridescent and some are brown and drab? Isn't it enough to just be a beetle? Why do they have to be different colors? Why questions are questions of ultimate causation. So ultimate causation asks why things evolve the way they do. Why do they look the way they do? Why do they act the way they do? And this, of course, is the domain of evolutionary biology. Without evolutionary biology, we wouldn't be able to answer questions of ultimate causation about why organisms do things, because evolution is inherently a historical science. We're looking at how organisms have evolved over tens, if not hundreds of millions of years. So we can't really answer these ultimate causal questions without understanding the evolution of organisms. And in fact, many biologists have understood this point. They said, look, without being able to explain the ultimate causes of why organisms do things, we would be sitting there scratching our heads going, what is this about? Why do organisms do that? And in fact, answers to questions of ultimate causation are so important in biology that a famous evolutionary biologist, Theodore Dobzhansky, once said that nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. So much of what we see in terms of how animals look and how they behave will simply not make any sense unless we contextualize it by shining the light of evolution upon it. So evolutionary biology is the sole domain of biology that can simultaneously answer questions of both proximate and ultimate causation. That is the how and why traits evolve and are maintained. So if we go back and we ask why this male is doing what he is doing, we can answer this using ultimate causation by saying males perform this elaborate dance because, surprise, female superb birds of paradise prefer males that can perform all of these moves flawlessly. Males that perform these moves flawlessly, it says something really important about the quality of the genes within his cells. Right? So the proximate cause might be a genetic cause that allows him to dance the way that he does, but the ultimate cause is females prefer males that dance really well. And so only males with good genes, good dancing genes, will mate, and they will pass on those good dancing genes to their offspring. Females have a preference for males that can perform these steps flawlessly. And you can see she's looking really carefully. And so females actually inherit a preference for males that can perform this dance flawlessly. Now we'll talk a lot more about this next week when we talk about sexual selection, and hopefully this will make even more sense. Now, lest you think that this is some esoteric exercise in understanding why birds in the jungles of Papua New Guinea are dancing, there are important ultimate questions that relate to human biology as well. One painful such question is, why do hernias occur only in humans and not in other animals? Now, if you don't understand what a hernia is, I have this lovely illustration that shows you that there is a weak spot in the body wall through which the intestines can emerge down into the testicles, into the scrotum. And it is an incredibly painful condition. So we understand how this condition arises. There's a weakness in the body wall, but why? Well, you all took Bio 9A, and you understand that humans, like other vertebrates, have fishy ancestors. And guess what? Oceans are cold. So having your testicles down outside of your body in a scrotum, if you live in a cold ocean, is not a good idea. And so if you look at fish today and you cut them open, their gonads develop and actually mature up close to their heart, and they stay there. And lo and behold, if you look at a human fetus at about 12 weeks of age, their testicles develop up in their body cavity around their heart. Now, of course, the lineage of animals that we are a part of, the tetrapods, ultimately left the water. So we don't have to deal with cold water like our fishy ancestors do. Not only that, we produce our own body heat. We are endotherms. And so the internal environment is a really bad place inside of a human for sperm production. And so what happens over the course of development is from 12 weeks until about 24 weeks, the testicles descend. And eventually they pop through the body wall. There they go. But that leaves a weak spot through which the intestines can emerge later in life. So here again, we understand both the proximate, the physical and immediate cause of a hernia, but also the ultimate cause. It has to do with the fact that we share a common ancestor with other organisms that arose within cold oceans whose testes develop in their body cavity, but ours eventually move outside of the body. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll do our second video in just a moment.